There are many letters in the alphabet like A, B, C, J, Q. My show is called The Symposium, clearly inspired by Plato in a non-homosexual way. And
Nick Fuentes has promised me that if he was president, we would eat a steak at the White House together. So at the beginning of the dinner, I will warn him, do not attack Georgia. Yes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the legendary figure before you is none other than my absolute intellectual hero, Dr. Jean-François Gariépy, an intellectual, biologist, and of course the esteemed author of The Revolutionary Phenotype. It's a book that I've long discussed and recommended to my audience. And by the way of fact, I come from the small yet historically and culturally rich nation of Georgia, where I had the privilege of introducing your name and your work to several intellectual circles. So to begin, comment allez-vous, Dr. Gariépy? What endeavors currently occupy your time? And of course, where can we find you online?
It's going very well. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the intro. I'm the author of The Revolutionary Phenotype. You can see all of my media links at jfg.world. I am at JFG Tonight on Rumble every night of the week.
Thank you so much. All the links will be in the description. Make sure to get a copy of The Revolutionary Phenotype. It's available on Amazon.com, both a physical copy and a Kindle version. Now, your book, The Revolutionary Phenotype, it offers a very compelling account of how life began on Earth and how it will ultimately end if humanity pursues the path of genetically modifying its offspring with the aid of AI. So my question to you is, what might the near future, let's say the next 100, 200 years, look like if clinics began offering genetic modifications to unborn babies starting today? And more importantly, why is it that once this process begins, there's no turning back?
Well, what it looks like in the next 100 years, if we were to start genetically modifying babies, which we basically are, is a building up of AI knowledge about human genetics. So what we're going to have is more and more databases, libraries. We will understand the human genome with more details. This gene causes this gene causes this, and those two genes together may cause something else. So we're going to have conditional statements being built up by AI about how you become in your life if you have this gene or if you've been given another gene. These libraries will be built, and we will already see starting the effect of domestication. Because what we are about to do, which is open up our genome to writing access by an external entity, an external intelligence, what we're doing is basically we're going to domesticate the human genome in the same way we domesticated pigs and cows, but it's going to be graver because we didn't have a choice about pigs and cows. They had to be functional. They had to live by our side. And as such, our domestication of them was limited by their own survival. When AI starts domesticating humans, it will have the choice of pulling the plug off of the human genome. It won't be an obligation to maintain the humans as they are right now. So what we're going to see is a disappearance of the sexual selection pressure. Everything that makes us egotistical in the pursuit of our own interest, all of this will be stripped off of the human mind by the AI simply because it's going to be better that way for the AI. So the process that we're about to see is what happens to a species when it centralizes its gene selection. And this is what happened to a few insect species like bees and ants. They have centralized into a queen. We are about to centralize into a queen, except that the queen will not be one of us. It will be another entity.
Thank you. And have you observed any recent advancements in pursuit of making AI-driven genetic modification that is both technically feasible and also, of course, financially accessible?
Well, we're seeing the the progression of AI is stunning, really. And although it's not yet specifically for genes, you can see that AI will be readily convertible towards studying genes. Because the way we're creating black boxes of human cultural products with these AIs we're doing right now with Grok, ChatGPT, they are basically capturing, as I had predicted in chapter 12 of my book, they are predicting the entirety of human culture already. We already have the hard drive that I described in chapter 12, the hard drive that contains literally everything that humans ever knew. It went much faster than I expected, but that is an advance because it's not super hard to make the step, and someone one day will make the step, and it's going to happen within 5 to 10 years, I believe, to say to this AI, now concentrate on genes only and use all of your knowledge to study the impact of these genes and go about every single gene, try to extract as much information as you can about it. And we're going to have causal conclusions being reached by the AI in a totally black box environment that we absolutely do not control. So that's another thing. That's another feature of the AIs that are currently rising. We are absolutely losing control live in front of us, and it's being done carelessly. The way in which we are building entire columns of servers that are merely producing computational operations that we don't understand, and we're just packing the most computations we can within small spans of time so that we get the answers we expect at the end, but we don't know the process that's been going on behind the scenes.
Thank you so much, and allow me to ask you a bit more personal question, and this might sound naive, but let's say you live in a time when genetic modifications were popular, you know, and children free of disease, more mentally stable, healthier, etc. How would you as a parent resist the temptation, and what would be the cost of sustaining a traditional, let's call it, unmodified family?
Well, I would say it's through traditionalism and anarcho-primitivism. So basically, you have to see the progression of technology in human culture. Some of these technologies have been useful. And how do we know whether a technology down the line will kill us? Well, that is a serious question. And that is what I explore in the Revolutionary Phenotype. Like, you could have refused fire, you could have refused houses, you could have refused guns. And at any of these points, if you had refused these technologies, you would have lived a certain disadvantage, but you would also have gotten advantages from not being soiled by these products of modernity. And there are a lot of technologies that in retrospect, we shouldn't have used and we don't use anymore. Think of VHS, for example. Think of the cultural products of Hollywood between the 60s and the 2000s. Art that was adhered to and watched by most people in American society and outside. One of the biggest product of export of American society. And yet we've given up, and now we still have movies and we still have songs, but somehow the industry has been reduced in orders of magnitude in terms of size. Hollywood is not what it used to be, and the physical media of even DVDs have disappeared, and everything has virtualized. So there are technologies that we abandon and that we look back, and not everything was good about them. You know, there was some propaganda, and if you look at the late contribution of Hollywood to American society, it was extreme leftist propaganda. If you look at the latest Pixar Disney movies versus the first ones are more in line with maintaining a form of traditional heterosexual society. The latest one are absolutely batshit insane in terms of liberalism. So you have to evaluate each technology for what it is, and it has pros and cons. The technology of gene modifications, we have to understand what are the pros and what are the cons. And you'll realize that the pros are all short-term fighting against nature. So, for example, people want to be rid of disease. Certainly, you can find a way to modify genes to avoid having Parkinson's disease later in life, avoid having Alzheimer, cancer, etc. You can delay all of these things. But you're not really delaying death, and you're not really delaying the cognitive decline that you're going to have to live through. So you're really extending life in a portion that is not worth living but by that much. You are extending life toward moments where you won't be able to reproduce further. You may not even be able to care for your grandchildren that much. Because you're getting tired and you have cognitive decline, and anyways, life has made it so that parents are there to care for children until they reach reproductive age, and then they are independent. So you have to put this all in the pros, but notice the conditional of these pros and advantages, and notice how, in comparison, you have to understand what you lose with genetic modification. What you lose is being part of a sexual species, and it's bigger than most people think. It's abandoning sex and trusting a computer for the determination of your genes. It's abandoning all of your instincts that tell you, I'm going to find a wife that has features A, B, C, and just dump the responsibility onto an AI agent that it won't matter which wife you take, because the AI agent will modify her genes so that it won't matter to your babies. But by doing so, you are truly married to the AI. And you are married to the AI in a way that is not in your interest long term. Because sexual selection is what led to everything that you like about humanity. No matter what you like, whether you like sports or you're an intellectual, any domain of big accomplishment of human genius and human creativity is a direct result of the fact that we're a sexual species. Because non-sexual species, the furthest they ever got is bacteria. There is no moose that is an asexual moose. There is no frog or fish or bird or dinosaur that is asexual. When you are asexual, you evolve toward extreme simplicity, and that is basically a law of mathematics. That is just how it works. To have complexity, you have to have the pursuit of charming, the pursuit of charming the other sex, and for that, let us never abandon the technology of sexual selection. It was discovered 2 billion years ago, and it's way more important than fire, money, houses, or anything that you could care from modernity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Now, my show is called The Symposium, clearly inspired by Plato in a non-homosexual way. And could you please, as a biologist, explain to us the nature of love between a male and a female?
Well, yeah, I mean, there is so much to say because it's the big binary of nature. First and foremost, the fact that there are males and females is a stunning fact of nature, because very rarely will nature separate two categories of things in such a clear binary way, which is why it's fascinating to see the leftists fighting so hard against this binary, because it's not a fight you can possibly win. Nature really wants, and this was demonstrated by Richard Dawkins, nature really wants 50% of the human species to be female and 50% to be male. And you could try to trick nature in all sorts of ways, and you would most likely lose at the end, because no matter what you do, even if you change the regime of marriage of humans, even if you make it so that one man will have 5 wives and 4 men will be left dead ends and not reproduce, even then nature will continue to produce these 4 useless men. Why? Because nature is trying to be the one man that's the most successful. And nature is trying to be one of the 5 females that get chosen by the successful male. So that is how you have to see the sexual dichotomy. It's nature trying to do its best to fit evolution in advance. And this is a big difference with non-sexual species in non-sexual species like bacteria, they face an environment, they die or they live, and that is the only determinant of whether they will survive and leave descent. Now, that's a very long-term evolutionary regime, and it takes time to innovate, because all you have is a bacteria that knows, well, the way I am has always worked, my ancestors have always survived, and so I can continue. It doesn't have a way to mix, so the bacteria is stuck with itself, really. And the bacteria doesn't have a way to exchange ideas with other bacteria that came from other branches, other mutational history. In sex, everything is speeded up, because once sex is evolved in a species, now you have a way not only to continue evolving, to continue testing whether you are a fit individual in the environment you live in. So that's the survival part of the sexual being. He has to continue surviving. But not only this, now you have the whole competition for mates that shows up. And now you have to impress a mate on top of being alive. Being alive is not enough anymore. So impressing a mate that is charming them to the point that they are convinced that you are the right person to reproduce with, that is an extra. And you see all of these extras in sexual species, the peacock tail, men just displaying wealth to attract women. You have in birds, they will collect a bunch of garbage pieces and put them together as some form of decoration to impress the female. You have all of these demonstrations of skills that are happening as part of courtship, because now the game is not just to survive, it's to show that you can survive and that you even have extra to care for your mate and to allow them to exist themselves. So sexual selection is also speeded up with respect to normal selection, because you have the mixing of genes. Systematically, every generation, you mix your genome, half of it with half of the genome of another person, and that leads to a baby that is completely novel, that the world has never seen before. That's very different from bacteria that are stuck with their own genome forever. You are never stuck with your genome. If there's a piece of you that is good in sexual selection, it will jump from body to body into the future, and it will associate with other good pieces from other good solutions to life. So for all these reasons, sexual selection goes millions of times faster, literally millions of times faster than regular selection.
Well, thank you so much. Now, every reasonable person understands that every political system is engaged explicitly or implicitly in some form of eugenics. So I'd like to basically rewarding certain genes while punishing the others. So my question to you is, what kind of genes are being punished right now in the Western world, and what consequences will it bring about in, let's say, 50, 80 years, by the end of the century?
Right now, I'm at the forefront of this war, and I'm being targeted for it. The genes that are being basically aimed for eradication are male genes of creativity, innovation, thinking out of the box. If you think out of the box in Western civilization right now, you get in trouble, because you're going to be labeled a Trump supporter or a far-right thinker. Any sort of traditionalist thinking has been targeted for harassment and elimination by the liberal elite. Any form of thinking about the preservation of self and the preservation of the demographics of our nation has been targeted and heavily propagandized against. So basically, anything that connects us to the past has been targeted as too old, too reactionary, and must be eliminated by the leftist elite that controls our world. Whether they will succeed is still open for questions. I think they cannot succeed everywhere. So there has to be bastions of resistance that will develop in white areas of Western civilization. And in those areas, you will have a resurgence of the kind of patriarchy or traditionalist forms of thinking that is currently being oppressed.
Thank you so much. Now, and you're gonna love this question. Now, there are many letters in the alphabet, like A, B, C, J, Q. So, in the most TOS-friendly way possible, could you explain to my viewers, my Georgian viewers, the importance of studying the question? Because we have a lot of boomers who literally fetishize the letter J, and they're completely blind of the dangers, just like Republican evangelicals. So, could you explain the importance, please?
Well, yeah, I mean, our peoples, because we are nations formed by large groups, our peoples are diverse, and we have different interest groups that live among us. And one important group that has brought cultural contributions to America for a while now are the Jews. And the Jews, you have to understand when they participate to cultural contributions, how they feel. And you have to understand that their philosophy will be based on their own view of the world, which is a view in which they do not quite have skin in the game in the demographic outcome of what happens to the US. Because whether the US is populated by 99% Indians in 1,000 years from now, or whether it's populated by 99% black or 99% white, that doesn't change anything with respect to the positioning of Jews. They consider that they have their own way of surviving, which is traveling the world, interacting with various nations, playing the international merchant role, and basically hedging their bet as to their positioning on the stock market and however it is that they make money. So, and then they have Israel also, which is the safe harbor runaway that they have, which we don't. So all of this to say, when Jews contribute to a civilization intellectually, and they do a lot, you have to understand that the contribution will come from a perspective that may not have your best interest at heart at all times, simply because they do not have the same skin in the game that you have, perhaps as a white man in America. So all I've been pushing for throughout my life is let's understand this and understand and label these intellectual contributions. Understand, okay, this is the perspective of a Jew. This is the perspective of a black man. This is the perspective of a white man. I want to understand all of it, and I want to welcome out of it and understand each for their own positioning. But what's often happening is the disguise of these outside contribution and foreign thinking to American life, which basically give you the impression that it's someone on your side talking to you on the camera, when in certain situations it may be someone whose interests are completely opposite to yours.
Thank you so much. Now, we know that once a person turns 50, they start to lose about 20 to 30 grams of neurons per decade. So degeneration is inevitable, but still, what can we do to, let's say, delay the mental decay, and what do you personally do to keep your cognitive abilities sharp?
I don't. I consider that you can't really... Oh, I'm getting echo here. I do not at all do that. I do not seek to improve my cognition or to maintain it. I personally abdicate to the rules of entropy, and I accept that I will become an old rambling man. And so acceptance, I guess, is my way of handling it rather than fighting against it. Now, I'm sure that the fact that I do math, I do thinking, when I have hobby time, you know, I sit on my bed and I do some math, trying to find answers to the big questions of math that have not been resolved yet. So I guess that perhaps it may help extend, but I'm not counting on it.
Thank you. Now, could you please explain to us technically how the human brain degenerates over time, and if there's a difference between how a male versus female brain degenerates over time?
Oh, I'm not an expert on these subjects. I don't know if there's a difference between men and women on this aspect. There's certainly cognitive decline across the board. Both will live through cognitive decline. And how does it work? Well, it works in so many ways, and there are neurodegenerative disorders that are illustrative of these ways. For example, in Alzheimer, it is believed that there's some accumulation of certain beta amyloid plaques, and perhaps it's a cause, or perhaps it's a correlate to the neurodegenerescence. In Parkinson's disease, you have the loss of a specific population of neuron, dopamine neurons in the basal ganglia, and you have a messing up of the basal ganglia functioning. So no matter how it happens, in general, it's true for one reason or another. You are losing neural connections and they are not reestablishing. And that is a consequence of evolution. Simply, evolution has been having the choice. Do I take this gene that makes you okay when you're young but sick when you're old? Or do I take the other gene that would make you healthy when you're old but not healthy when you're young? And every time evolution will choose young. Because every time evolution is like, if I invest in the youth, I get perhaps babies down the line. But if I invest in the old, I do not get babies down the line. And so it's as simple as this. We do not have the evolutionary pressure to maintain our bodies forever. It cannot happen. And for those who try to extend their life and crystallize themselves as the adult being that they are in error. They are fighting an unwinnable war.
Thank you so much. Now, what do you think about the scam that's becoming more and more popular? I'm talking about lion's mane and different supplements that claim that they cause neurogenesis in an adult human brain, and basically you become unrecognizably clever, you grow new neurons and have an increased IQ. What do you think about this scam? Because a lot of people are paying thousands of dollars into this sham.
Yeah, it is scam, and even if you found something that creates neurogenesis, that leads neurons to replicate in your brain, which they already do to an extent, maybe you'll find some substance that increases that. But those neurons will not make you more intelligent. You have not evolved for new neurons to suddenly organize in the perfect way they would have if you were through your normal developmental trajectory. So a neuron that literally is put in a brain in the age, it doesn't know where to go. It doesn't know how to establish connections because it's outside of its general program. It's actually a phenomenon that I describe as the naked wire in my book, The Revolutionary Phenotype. So you can't have pieces of life solve solutions that are holistic in nature. So you have, for example, in your finger, you have maybe skin cells that can double themselves, but they won't double themselves into reforming a whole finger ever. So if you cut your finger, you lose your finger. They won't have the solution to how do I recreate a new body? And just like in the same way, the new neurons will not have the solution on how do I recreate a functional brain. They will hang around, they will try to populate whatever area they end up with, but it's going to be so disorganized. I would simply say to these scam people, prove me that you're right, get your substance, consume it for 10 years, and resolve a big mathematical problem that was never resolved before, like the Goldbach conjecture, and then I will believe you that you're clever.
Thank you so much. I wanted to ask you, is it still considered racist in your region of the world to basically recognize the existence of biodiversity, which you value more than any leftist ever?
In Canada, it's still recognized as racist. By the left, but the left has been losing ground on this because in 2016 they were able to silence us. Now we have alternative platforms, we have places like X that have loosened the standards, and so at least now we can say it. So I would say it's still stigmatized and considered antisocial by the left, but the left is getting smaller and smaller. And there's a generation of people rising right now. Young people aren't willing to succumb to the left's dogma on this.
And do you believe that feminists will basically go extinct within this century?
Absolutely. Yeah? Oh yeah, they are self-destructive. Trans has already peaked. LGBT will be peaking, and down the line, feminism will peak as a whole. Simply because they are just people who are frustrated against nature, and you cannot be frustrated against nature. That's the one rule of life. Whether you're a frog, a salamander, a fish, or a human, you cannot go in a fight against heterosexuality. That is the one no-no that all life forms must respect. And the feminists, they end up making one baby. They divorce their man once they're pregnant, or during pregnancy, or shortly after. They are dead ends of the evolutionary history of planet Earth, and they have simply bit a bait that they couldn't chew, and now they're getting hooked.
Thank you so much. I think we would both agree that IQ is about 80% hereditary. And what other traits are just as much hereditary that we kind of ignore and think of it as a culture and nurture?
I believe that almost everything, like honor, honorability in one's interaction, conscientiousness, carefulness, detail orientation, all of the little features of your personality, where eventually you end up at school and you see other kids and you realize, whoa, I'm different. If you're different in, say, an autistic or intelligent way, I think it's genetic. If you're different in terms of being more socially outwardly and being able to connect with people, if you have empathy, if you have an ability to comprehend the problems of others and feel them, all of this to me is genetic. And the fact that we are putting this aside and assuming in society, oh no, everyone has equal capacity for empathy, we just have to educate them. That is a false tenet of the Marxist education system of today. There are people who simply don't have the empathy. They don't have the brain capacity because they don't have the genes for it. And so trying to train them to empathize and trying to train them away from criminal or psychopathic lifestyles of all kind, you can only fail. So I would say by dismissing all of the things that could be genetics and that do seem to be genetic, we are denying nature, and we are driving ourselves into social projects that can only fail, and in which we're wasting enormous amounts of money. Think about the money that we're investing in trying to get a whole population in America of minorities and non-whites to perform equally to whites in educational settings. That's not feasible. You won't get there. So all you create down the line is suffering, false expectations, and the teachers that are at the forefront of this racial war, basically, they have to suffer the brunt of the impossibility that we put in their hands.
Thank you so much. And since you believe that political views are also heritable, what kind of eugenics, of course in the Minecraft server, would you propose and sounds, more appealing to you? What kind of eugenics?
Well, the best eugenics is to not have too much of it and to leave it to nature. So eugenics to me is always bad when it's taken into the hands of humans. So what I say is, right now we have given eugenics in the hands of humans because we said, all right, we're going to help all of those single moms survive. And by doing so, we have favored the single mom lifestyle. And we have basically financially incentivized divorce. And so we have destroyed families. And down the line, we have destroyed the passation of culture by the patriarch to the children. So I say, let us reverse all of this. And a laissez-faire system is always best for the genes. So why would we be giving money to poor, money to single women, money to minorities, money to migrants? Remove all of this and let people rise for their own success through their own ways by just having success on the free market, and just make sure to maintain a free market. That is, I would say, the one thing that the government should do, is make sure to be a watchover of society that ensures that the free market is there for people to succeed on. But right now, we're so far from a free market. We have destroyed any form of meritocracy in our society.
Yes, and you expressed it perfectly when you said that with socialism, you're going to create more dependence, and down the line, it's going to be unsustainable because people are going to require more and more resources. So do you think that socialism or some form of communism will win, and when? And how long do you think it's going to take until the system falls apart, if it happens?
I think it's fascinating because in society it seems that multiple things can happen at once. So I do think that socialism wins in a way. I mean, you've seen the increase of leftism and the growth of the US state over 100 years. It doesn't seem like it's headed toward a stop. We may have with Trump a respite, but not a stop. The leftists are going to continue being hungry for more social welfare, and AI will only help this, because AI will come in and give this kind of illusion of abundance, and you have a whole wing of the leftists that is rising, which is the abundance liberals, people who think that we should just give literally everything people need to them without them working for it. So this wing will exist, and it will keep pulling down onto society. But at the same time, you see stuff like the development of Bitcoin, and you see that there is kind of an out, and that the people interested in a meritocratic world are developing the tools such that the state may not be able to steal from them anymore. So the state was very able to steal your bank account's money. So if you were becoming rich in Canada or in the US, easily the state could come in and just swipe out everything you own. They can't anymore with Bitcoin. And so I think at the same time that socialism is winning, meritocracy is also creating a cocoon for itself in which it will be protected by the dirty hands of the state. And one of the consequences of Bitcoin is the acceleration of the fall of the social welfare empire. So because there is Bitcoin, now the US cannot print money infinitely anymore. Or if they do so, they will pay the price in Bitcoin. So you have here a standard that has risen that gives me much hope that the social welfare state can be made to fall without too much pain for people who are interested in a meritocratic capitalist world.
Got it. Thank you so much. Is it too late for a crypto normies like myself to get into Bitcoin who's not a millionaire? Is it too late, or is there a way that we can, jump on a train?
It's never too late to be in Bitcoin. Now, would you enter in Bitcoin right now? If you enter right now, you're probably going to be disappointed when you see it fall to 60K. But right now, the positioning should be, okay, I can get in Bitcoin, I can take the risk and maybe do a little profit at the top of this bull run. But most importantly, set your life so that you can accumulate savings right now, and down the line buy Bitcoin in 1-2 years from now at 60K, 80K. And then you're going to see a rise down the line in 4 or 5 years. No one was on the first wave of Bitcoin. Almost no one. Even I mean, I had my first Bitcoin in 2013, so I kind of missed the 2 first years of Bitcoin. But yeah, it's not too late at all, because Bitcoin is an infinitely growing machine. You just have to get in at the right moment of the cycle. That right moment may not be exactly now, but perhaps in 1 or 2 years. And anyways, 1 or 2 years of making sure you have enough savings is plenty. It's plenty of time to leave you the time to have a strategy when you get there.
Thank you so much. Now, what do you think the future holds for your good friend Nick Fuentes?
Well, Nick Fuentes, is a man who has marked the history of America already. So what the future holds is not so important as to he is a man who has changed the cultural zeitgeist of human civilization, and that is important. Now, the future, what seems to be happening is that you have a warming of conservative ink. Instead of fighting the far right at this point, they are more welcoming. This is why you had the Dinesh D'Souza debate happening. So you're still gonna have attacks and censorship against them, but they are evidently not working. And in fact, they are creating a cult following to an extent that knows that he has been treated unjustly, and that knows that the free market is an illusion and it's all a game led by very powerful people. Nick Fuentes' victory is inevitable because they deploy so much effort. You know that he's got the right argument. You know that he's the right guy. So they wouldn't deploy that much force against him if it wasn't.
I gotta ask you a favor. If you enjoyed the questions and if Nick Fuentes becomes the president, could you please tell him to be kind to my nation and not to send freedom fighters for liberal democracy or NGOs, etc. Could you please, yeah.
Absolutely. Nick Fuentes has promised me that if he was president, we would eat a steak at the White House together. So at the beginning of the dinner, I will warn him, do not attack Georgia.
Thank you so much. And for the last question, what is the best way for a woman to deliver a baby? Is it standing? Is it sitting? Is it in the pool? And also laying down? And also, how should the baby be treated after 30 minutes after delivery? Do you believe in the vaccines or some kind of procedures? Like, what's the perfect delivery method?
Personally, I believe in delivery straight from nature, and there is no vaccine that's needed. People will tell you vitamin K injection. I just don't believe this. I just believe that a well-fed woman starting to breastfeed her infant will give everything that her infant needs, and these things are just not needed. So what's the best way? Well, personally, I really love delivery at home. I really love non-medical delivery. For standing there are advantages to all positions. Standing is feasible. Standing, though, at the end gets very painful. But also the laying on the back is perhaps one of the worst possible positions, which is the one that they choose in the hospital. So I would say bat. I've seen some women choose the bat, but it's a psychological gain. I don't think it has benefits very much. So either standing or laying on the side or laying on the back or on the forelegs, sitting in a dog-like position. All of these are feasible. They're all feasible, and no matter, basically, I would say go with what the female chooses and prefers and is less painful for her. As far as treating the baby will come out. Simply do not pull the baby. Let the baby come out on its own. Just sustain the position of the head so that he doesn't twist his head. Just sustain his back and the back of his head. Make sure that he is still connected to the umbilical cord, and he's going to continue getting blood even after being out. After the birth, he's going to continue get blood from the mother through the umbilical cord, and eventually you will see that this umbilical cord is whitening, calcifying, kind of becoming very solid. And at that point, there's no more blood circulating. So when it's white and solid, you can cut it, and then just take care of the baby by loving it, have it eventually access the boobs of the mother for breastfeeding. And what else? Just expect, just know that once the baby is out, eventually the mother will also spout out her placenta, which is a massive amount of blood and kind of injury looking, scab looking like blood that is dark red, and just don't be afraid. It's the female uterus just ejects the placenta, and you can inspect it visually for any form of bacterial infection, but generally it's just going to be a healthy placenta that there's nothing to worry about. And from there, just care about the growing baby and feed it and make sure that it has a heart rate and breathing. And that's all that life needs.
Well, thank you so much. Not gonna take more of your time. Thank you again so much for coming on the show. It was an absolute honor. I hope you had fun. And could you please tell my fellow Georgians to make more babies?
Absolutely, make more babies, because you have the chance of having an area of the world in which you own it and it's still yours, and people aren't flocking to try to change your demographics as much as they are in the US. So you have this chance, and you have this wealth that is unquantifiable, the wealth of having land, self-control, and self-determination. The one thing that could destroy that chance for you is if you don't make babies and if you leave your area unpopulated and then other people just flock in and take it from you.